I have returned. I have returned with an offer you can't refuse. Hi. I'm so verklempt. The computer doesn't want to work. All the little programs, they just don't get along with each other. They fuss and they fight and they just won't work. And it's so sad. I don't know what's wrong. It's a tragedy, I tell you. Hi, how you doing? And we've got a channel full of zeros. Yeah. We ain't got nobody here, man. Ain't nobody here no more. Okay, let's see if I can skip forward to some music we haven't heard in a few. All right, there we go. There we go. We got a little music here. Made us. I overindulged a bit on milk and cookies. I had some graham crackers, and that is I've taken to the habit of. Well, my thing. I get some Nutella and some mallow fluff and some graham crackers, instant s'mores. And so I'll make a little bit of make some s'mores, and a big glass of milk. And I overindulged and ate a few too many. I got a little you know, bleh. So, how's every little thing? How are y'all doing? Now, I did promise I'd be back tonight at 9, so I managed to wrestle the computer into going back on. I'm really starting to, okay. Google has apparently started doing this thing where I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Firefox or Google, but you open a new tab, and it gives you a page of all these. There's no other term for it. Hipster headlines, they'll show you some of the page. These little clips here that show that different pages that you've already scanned, but most of the pages are of news headlines that some New York hipster thinks are trendy and important, and you can almost see the man bun, things like we are in our culture is enslaved to the automobile, that kind of crap. Just this is okay. That's the problem. All the people that are making all the noise, all the liberals and social justice warriors and metrosexual yupster, man bun useless people. These are city folk, okay? These people build their entire worldview around it. They live in New York City or L.A., and those are you don't realize how damn big those cities are. Years ago, I was invited to a convention. It was in L.A. And first and last and only time I ever flew in an airplane all the way. Only time I've ever been to California. And a friend of mine online, he paid for my airline ticket. He paid for everything. I was like, wow, that was cool. And so I come over there, and And I'll tell you, I stopped halfway at Chicago. At the Chicago airport. And we come flying in over Chicago, and I looked down. The biggest city I ever lived in, the biggest city I have ever lived in was Charleston, West Virginia. And Charleston, West Virginia, and its suburb, South Charleston. You could put them in one corner of Chicago, and it just rattled around loose. We came flying and that city went on forever, and I'm like, my word, I couldn't imagine living in a city that large. And then we came in. I remember we flew in, and we flew from Chicago over to L.A. And I remember coming in and seeing L.A. down there, and it's, my word, you don't really grasp how big these cities are until you've seen them from the air. And then you start to understand why these big city people do not understand the rest of the world. Because I could leave town, if I, back when, I was still, mobile. I could walk out my front, where I'm living right now. If I was in, physically fit, I could walk out the front door and walk out, in an hour or two, I could walk completely out of town. And these cities, you could if you lived in it, you could walk a night and a day and never see the end of the city. You'd never see the edge of the city. And you live your whole life in the city, you're going to think the entire world is like that. Whether or not you're aware of it, it's going to affect your thinking. This is why you got these silly little bobbleheads going out there pushing these little Rice-Mobile battery-powered cars. We don't need these, down with the diesel engine, down with the internal combustion engine, and they think that the Prius is the future. They don't realize what the roads are like out, just how far and how hard and how long everybody else has to drive. For them, living in a city, a car is a luxury. And so they think that a car is a luxury for everyone. You live in New York City, you don't need a car to get anywhere. You got the subway, you got the buses, and more than likely you live in a neighborhood where 100 different things are within a couple of city blocks of you. They don't grasp it. They don't experience what we experience. They don't know what it's like. Now, it's probably inconceivable to them. It is probably inconceivable to somebody that lives in a city to live like I do. To live in a trailer park, where it is literally it is a 5-minute walk. Well, maybe 2 or 3 minutes walk to the mailbox at the front of the trailer park. And it is, several miles to the nearest grocery store. And there are no buses here. There's no subway here. There's no, there is no rail here. There's no public transit. They could not begin to grasp living like this. They cannot grasp the idea of living someplace where you have four-wheel drive because you need it. They have never heard the instructions, turn off the paved road. For them, going out on a four-wheel drive is an adventure that they do, to show how granola crunchy they are. They don't get, for other people, that's their daily their daily drive to and from work. And so they come out with these ridiculous notions that we can all run around on battery-powered cars with wheels like roller skates. And they can't grasp just how bad an idea that is. They can't grasp the idea of privacy or private property either, because most of them live in buildings where they have to share a floor, and a ceiling with entire families of people that don't know how to shut up at night. They don't grasp that their lifestyle is the strange one. And they can go out and walk out their front door. They're 19 stories up. They go down an elevator. They go out the front door of the skyscraper they live in, and they could walk all day and all night and on into the morning and never reach the end of their city. And they think, and this is why they're so scared about the environment. They think that we're going to pave paradise and put up a parking lot, because they've never been outside of the limits of their own city. And they're silly enough to believe that all sorts of things. They don't realize that their lifestyle is artificially supported. Oh my! I'm a little. Pardon me. I'm a little tired. I'm a little logy, and managed to get up a new nip and tuck strip today. Yeah, I'm just tearing up the drawing pad, aren't I? But yeah, I may have to get up and run for the little artist room in a little bit. I'm feeling just tummy ache, but I'll hold out. Bum 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 diddy 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 bum 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 ya mama yero. Oh my. Got an argument with somebody on it, Now I don't know how many of you read Marvel, DC or Marvel comics. Now, in DC Comics, there is, about the Green Lantern, and fairly recently, about a year or two ago, they sort of expanded on the lore of the Green Lanterns. Everybody knows the basic story. The Green Lanterns, they can do just about anything. They can power up they recharge their rings off their lanterns, and they can do just about anything with their ring, except their rings are weak against anything yellow. And a few years back, they expanded on that idea and explained why. And oh my. Okay, I am going to have to run to the restroom. I will be right back. But enjoy the music. Sorry about that. Sorry to keep you sitting there and turn that down a little bit. Whew. Oh yeah. Oh my. My, oh my, my, oh my. Well, whew. But you got to admit, yeah, the comics these days they're pretty much social justice warrior chick tracts. They're chick tracts for Caitlyn Jenner. I don't know. Okay. Let's see here. That's checking this. I'm winded. I crossed my trailer. Experiencing interruptions? Find out why. Because we're a-holes. We want to find a new way to charge you extra money. Jerks. The more they improve the system. Funny how the more they improve the system, the worse it gets for us. New improved. You know. Fudge. Alright. Let's see. Caitlyn Jenner is not a she. His name is Bruce Jenner. He's a mutilated man. And no amount of airbrushing or post-operative duct taping is going to change that. He's a mentally ill, self-mutilated man. But anyway, getting back to the topic. Anyway, I was talking about the Green Lantern company. You know, they came up with the idea. Okay, first of all, they came up with the idea that the reason that Green Lanterns are weak against yellow is because there's like this emotional spectrum. All right? And green is the color of willpower or determination, and yellow is the color of fear. And apparently there was a yellow fear entity trapped inside the main Green Lantern power battery back on the planet Oa or something. You know, it's just blah, 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 blah. Well, anyway, they keep going with the idea. Eventually they came up with the idea that there are 7 different types of lantern, each one based on a different color of the rainbow. Roy G. Biv: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay, red is based on rage. Orange is based on avarice. Yellow is based on fear. Green is the most balanced one. It's in the center. It's based on willpower and determination. Blue is hope. Indigo is compassion. And violet is love. The reason I bring this up, I've been following a fan fiction on the Sufficient Velocity forums called With This Ring. It's about a guy who ends up with an orange lantern ring. And he basically, he uses in, basically in the comic books, the orange lantern is basically a waste. Because there's only one orange lantern. His name is Larfleeze, and in the orange main power battery has basically driven him nuts. He's been hiding on some backward planet someplace with, you know,
you know, with nothing but the orange power lantern and all the useless junk and treasure he's hoarded over the millennia. He's just bug nuts, completely crazy, and all he basically is mine, 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 mine. Well, anyway, this guy wrote it and wrote a fan fiction. It's basically this human finds an orange lantern ring, and basically he uses enlightened self-interest, and he manages to basically the story manages to make the idea of an orange lantern hero feasible. It's very, very well written. It's you got to give the guy points for that. He managed to make the idea that somebody with a ring powered by avarice could still be a hero. He basically did what I did with Spike and his greed growth. You remember in Nix's family, where Spike managed to turn his greed growth into a source of strength to battle the dragons that were attacking his home. Anyway, and there are a couple other fictions. There's one that's called I Want to See You Smile. This one hasn't been updated in a while, and the idea is that this is another story. One of these self-insert. The protagonist is a girl who finds a teal, T-E-A-L, ring and lantern. And her ring is, the emotional power is joy, happiness, and her motivation is to spread happiness wherever she goes. And she basically drives Batman right up a wall. And I've been fairly enjoying that one as well. And, I was talking... Well, first of all, I got to point out, I pointed out two things. One, any artist worth 2 bits in the DC Comics bullpen has got to be tearing their hair out over this. Because, okay... This is something you have to understand. The Roy G. Biv model of the color spectrum, it's rubbish. Color theory does not work like that. And if you've even at grade school, you figure out there are 3 primary colors, 3 secondary colors, and 6 tertiary colors. And then you get into the fact that there is additive color and there is subtractive color. You got red, green, blue is additive, cyan, magenta, yellow, and I forget the fourth is subtractive color. And basically put is that the Roy G. Biv is an oversimplification, and it's not really, it doesn't really work. And for that matter, it's not really a reflection of actual light and color either. You have to understand the whole thing about the primary colors, secondary colors, and everything like that. This isn't based on how light mixes. It's based on how the human eye interprets color, interprets visible light. Now we have rods, we have cells in the back of our eyes, rods and cones, and between them, they react to certain, the three different kinds of cones that react to. I'm stumbling over myself, but between the rods and the cones, they interpret luminosity, and also all the colors we see are because of those three different types of cells in the eye that pick up three particular wavelengths of light. And all the color theories we've come up with, the red, green, blue, and the red, yellow, blue, and all these, are attempts by artists and scientists to approximate how the eye works. And it is very particular to humans as well. Other species do not see the same colors we do, because they have different rods and cones. For instance, you think of dogs and cats, and how that they have, they are partially colorblind at least. They don't see as many colors as we do. They don't see reds, for one thing. And but more interestingly, there are species that see thousands of more colors just within the visible rainbow than we do. We have three different types of cones in our eye. Cone cells. And the pistol shrimp has something like 14. So even within the visible spectrum of light, they see an inestimable amount of number of colors that to us don't even exist. So, but anyway, and and anybody with any experience with or any inkling of human nature, or studying of psychology or psychiatry, the studying of human emotions, they'd be tearing their hair out too, because they have oversimplification, rage, greed, fear, determination, hope, compassion, love. That sounds pretty comprehensive, right? But there are thousands of other emotions. There are literally thousands of other emotions that aren't even mentioned. What about laughter? What about humor? What about humor? What about inspiration? What about there are dozens of word of the day calendars out there online that they give you at least a dozen different words for emotions that we don't have English words for. I don't know if you're grooving to what I'm saying here, but well, basically I made this point. It says, and I ended up with an argument, and and the next thing I know, I'm in an argument online in a forum with somebody about whether humor is an emotion or not. I'm like, what? Where do you go after that? Sort of the problem that that comes up a lot. You got a lot of people that outside of scriptural references, you see a lot of people, they try to come up with pop culture, various writers and fiction creators and people, they're trying to design a fictional world, and they try to come up with some sort of moral or ethical or emotional system, and they'll list off two or three things, and it'll be incomplete. It'll just sort of limp along because there are big obvious gaps in it. Take the let's take My Little Pony. They have the elements of harmony. Okay. Let's see, honesty, loyalty, laughter, generosity, and kindness. And the central one, the last one is friendship, which is basically supposed to be all the other five. Nothing wrong with those things. And they are quite decent virtues, quite honestly. But, and this is a big but, and it's a big heavy but, it's the biggest, heaviest but you ever saw. It would be a terrible, moral or ethical system to build a civilization off of. Because it's, speaking just as a Christian, it's obviously incomplete. Where things like, justice, chastity, justice. Where is chastity? Where is temperance? Where is, just to clarify, the Roman Catholics, the Roman Catholics have 7 virtues and 7, the 7 the 7 virtues and the 7 deadly sins. And there's really no there's really no scriptural foundation that that there's 7 particular sins or 7 particular virtues. The scope of virtues is in the Bible alone is much more comprehensive. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, meekness, gentleness, faith, temperance. That's what is 8 or 9? I forget. I'm just not counting out loud. And that's just listing the fruits of the Spirit. There are dozens of other virtues throughout discussed throughout the Bible, and there are certainly a lot more than just 7 sins. I love that how they came up. They looked at 10 commandments and came up with 7 sins. I'm like, you're missing a couple. You need to take this back to the Pope. He missed a couple. That's why I'm Baptist. But anyway, moving on. When you write let me put it this way: as it might be regarded as writing down a system of morals and ethics. when they were writing the Constitution, for example, and they listed off the Bill of Rights. In fact, one of the founders, one of the founding fathers of America, he said he opposed putting a Bill of Rights in the Constitution. He said because by putting it down like that, you are if you forget to list anything, you're de facto excluding it. Which is why they put down at the end, they put down at the end, any of the rights not enumerated here are reserved to the people. They just wanted to make it clear, if we've forgotten anything, you know that those rights exist and that you're not dummies, and you know whose rights these are. Humanity has a knack for either over-complexifying or over-simplifying ethical systems. As one joker put it, God gave all the laws He needed to rule Israel. He gave them all on 2 tablets. The entire moral system of Christianity in a single book. But now, in the modern times, it takes several hundred volumes of laws to control the trade of to control the interstate commerce of cabbages. Who had the better system here? Now, anyway, I'm not sure where I was going with this, really. I had no idea. I'm just rambling randomly. All around the ragged rock, the rolling rookie rumbles. Okay, that picture with Pipsqueak and Dinky. I'm terrible at drawing umbrellas. Are you trying to get them in perspective? Little tip, I learned something. You can broil a steak in a toaster oven in 10 minutes. You can burn it thoroughly in 20. Draw your own conclusions how I learned that. Yeah. Got little gut rumbles going on. It's not been eaten properly, which is ironic considering yesterday is when I got my groceries finally cornered the girl, and finally contacted her. She finally came out and did a grocery run for me. There are days I contemplate the idea of just buying, like, a few thousand TV dinners or Weight Watcher meals or whatever, just stacking them up. Or maybe just MREs. I don't know, something, anything. Just Instamatic meals. I love these people. There are these people online that they pre-package their meals. They'll spend a whole day cooking up food and dividing it up and putting on little plates and bowls and Tupperware and sealing it up in vacuum seals and popping it in the freezer and just planning out their meals for the next month or the next winter or whatever. I mean, there are squirrels less dedicated to preparing for the cold season, I'm like, if I did that, you know what the result would be? I'd have a refrigerator full of those things, and I would be sitting there just eating soup out of a can or something, you know. Just within a week, I would be sick of the meals I'd prepared. I remember once when I was, in my 20s, moved into a little upstairs apartment. I had a little refrigerator. I was dirt poor. I was even poorer than I am now, and I managed to get a little money, and I went and bought some bread, bought some cheese, bought some mayo, bought a big loaf of ham. Chopped ham that's squeezed into like a cylinder, a rectangular tube, and I lived on that for like a week or two. Nothing but chopped ham sandwiches. I was so sick. I was so sick of chopped ham by the end of that week. Oh my. I was like, no, I'll just lie here and starve. Thank you. Thank you very much. Downside of looking at all these drawings and stuff is I'm constantly going, oh, mistake, 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 mistake. Where's my eraser? Oh, it's too late. I can't do anything about it. I think it says something that most of my ideas for strips involve the characters and their girlfriends or wives getting frisky. Wishful thinking on my part, I suppose. I would be terrible in a relationship. I really would. I never had time for dating or for romance or anything like that. And quite frankly, I look over myself and I thought, I would not want, if I had a daughter, I wouldn't want a guy like me dating her. Because I have no prospects, and I'm very and the first thing you can do so much better than this, lady. You can do so much better than this. Oh. Oh my. Oh man, have you seen photographs of the new Teen Titans? They're going to make a live action TV series of the Teen Titans. And oh man, let me see. Oh man, they've made Robin look as gritty as their new Batman. It's really sad. Let me see if I can. Oh, here we go. Let me switch you over here. Here we go. Look at that. That's supposed to be Starfire. She's not black, okay? Get over it. Get over your ethnic, pandering here. She's not black. She's orange. Just look at this. This is what a multi-million-dollar production considers a good job on portraying the Teen Titans. Okay, Teen Titans. Okay, let's see here. If I can, let me see if Teen Titans cosplay. I can find you any number of Teen Titan cosplayers who did a better job than that multi-million-dollar company. I'm trying. You know, this is one of the more cartoony ones right there. It's, you know, right there. But I'm looking for one of the more, you know, real, you know, true to life types. This is what amateurs did. Amateurs did a better job than these overpaid professionals. You can imagine how not thrilled, you know, the more die-hard fans are about this. She looks like a black streetwalker. That's what she looks like. She looks like a streetwalker. That's so racist. I'll stop saying it when they stop looking like that. Ugh. These people could bleep up a county fair. I'm not kidding you. Just utterly screwed up, man. That's... And you know, if anybody complains, hey, you're complaining about it because she's black, and you know, just no, I'm complaining about it because she looks like crap. It's just, you know, never watch somebody. Never watch a corporation mess around with something that you love. You know, never like anything. That's because you know, once the cone heads get a hold of it. This is a fundamental problem with any creative endeavor. It's a fundamental problem with any creative endeavor, like movies, books, plays, TV shows. You know, you get the idea. Any creative endeavor where you involve a major corporation. Okay, you got somebody. Okay, let us run through the steps. You got some guy, you know, some maverick. Can you say Joss Whedon? Who makes, he catches lightning in a bottle. And he makes some incredibly great TV show or movie or comic book franchise or whatever. And everybody goes, this is incredible. And the money makers, the ones that, that market it, and buy and sell it, and that make it into a profitable industry, they go, we want more of this. And they discover to their surprise that usually the guy who did the creation, he might have a few dozen other ideas in him, but he's like I said, lightning in a bottle. And not everything. Not everything that he catches in the bottle is going to be lightning. Sometimes it's going to be a cow pat. And so they go. They want a formula. Shareholders want guaranteed returns on their investment. But in a creative endeavor, there are no guarantees. It is a very, they cannot, they want to reduce the risk as much as possible. This is why everything, they try to break it down into a formula. And what a surprise, everything that comes out on TV or out in publishing companies turns out formulaic. Twilight hit the shelves, and suddenly there were 1,000 different teen urban fantasy horror romance novels with black covers and single word titles on the cover. Harry Potter comes out, and suddenly everybody's publishing books about young pre-adolescent wizards or witches or werewolves or vampires or whatever you want. Everybody's trying to catch lightning, catch the same lightning twice. And it almost never works. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. My word, I've seen cosplayers that absolutely, I've seen pictures of cosplayers absolutely blow your mind how how realistic and how true to the character their portrayal is. They do it out of love, not for money and not because they're getting a paycheck. Whoever designed those looks for those 3 Teen Titans was doing it for a paycheck. And he was phoning it in. And of course they're going to rewrite the character's origins and powers and everything, she's supposed to be orange, she's supposed to be an alien, she's supposed to fly, she's supposed to be and no, it's not going to happen. And they're going to, like I said before, once they pee in it, they like the flavor better, so they buy it. And then they expect everybody else to pull up a cup. This is what happened with the Ghostbusters revamp. They were too busy trying to strut their girl power to actually do a good movie. And then when everybody decided, okay, we don't like that you've ruined our childhood here. And even if we hadn't, we'd hate this movie because it sucks. And so, you're sexist, you hate women. Accusing somebody of being sexist, racist, homophobe, that's easier than actually having a solid argument or, God forbid, actually doing a good job. I remember years ago there was a TV series. It was set in a police department in some little southern town. And one of the episodes was about how they decided, we need a new employee, and we need a new ethnic employee. We need a new ethnic police officer, and one of the recruits was, they had one black guy who was a recruit, and they signed him up, and he does a lousy job. He doesn't do his paperwork. He doesn't do his, he doesn't follow procedure. He's a mess. And finally they go, we got to fire him. And they take him into the mayor's office, and he says, and one of the regular characters is another black guy. and the sheriff and his deputy, who is a black guy, they take this new guy into the office and they tell him you're fired, because you didn't do your job. And the guy tries to plead race. He turns to the other black guy. They're firing. Don't you see it? Don't you see it? They're firing me because I'm black. And the sheriff just looks him in the eyes. No, son. You were hired because you were black. You're being fired because you're incompetent. And that live studio audience, ooh. And this was back in the 80s, okay? This wasn't, we hadn't even come close to the age of hypersensitivity that we have now. And just oh man. And even then, you were taking a risk saying anything like that. Today, it's how you get fired. Sorry, I got a little something stuck in my beard. I'm trying to trim it out with a pair of scissors here. Ugh. Ugh, hate that. Stick in the beard. Blech. Yeah. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think anymore. Nothing gold can stay, as the old poet once said. Nothing, in this life, good things are transient. They don't last forever, and if they last forever, they don't stay good forever. I'm looking at you, Simpsons. Good night. I can't believe that show is still on the air. The Simpsons. It's just, I haven't watched it in years, and I'm like, who's watching this? How is this still on the air? They have got to be out of ideas at this point, If you don't do it for the love of what you do, pretty soon it fades. And you can't do the same thing forever. Even Charles Schultz. It was sad though. Charles Schultz, he retired something like 3 days before he died. He wrote, "I'm finally setting down my pen," and 3 days later, like the same week, he passed away. He's a man I envy. Continual, constant output for something like 50 years. Of course, a lot of it was the same joke over and over again after a certain point. There's only so much you can do. Keep being original. Yeah. I'm trying to move on to a new topic, and I haven't got any new topics to talk about. Now, my stories eat me. And what do I mean by that? I mean, my stories, the fan fiction I write, the comic strips I write, the comic books I dream of, and all the other projects that I've stuck my finger into over the years. they consume me. They consume you a little bit at a time. A little bit of yourself goes into every. If anything you do is worthwhile, a little bit of yourself goes into it. And the problem is that one of the reasons I got so many projects is because I get too many irons in the fire. I get too many ideas. I get too many things I want to try, and I'll end up writing a chapter or two just trying to get the idea out. This is why I have the little random short stories and oddments. This is why I've got so many. This is why I've got so many currently in progress fan fictions, many of which I haven't written a sentence in months. I've got so many, and look at my homepage. I got all these comic strips. Most of them technically are supposed to be completely stopped, but every now and then I'll put something else down, and the next thing I know, it's when you create something, it sort of consumes you alive from the inside. Eats up a little bit of your vitality. I know that's kind of gruesome sounding. I know, kind of creepy sounding, but that's really how it is. Back when I was, a lot younger, I thought I had an endless fountain of energy and life to pour into my creations. And then I tried to, make a thing, and God laughed, and I tried to do everything, and I found that the more I tried to set stuff down, the more I ended up picking back up. I mean, technically, all but 2 strips on my homepage are supposed to be canceled. They're all supposed to be, permanently on hiatus, except for Tales of the Questor and Quinn Space Ranger, and that's it. That was supposed to be it. But I'm forever popping one file or the other open and adding something new, and sometimes I get so frustrated because I can't seem to, it's just like I suddenly become creatively constipated, and I can't seem to make anything new come out for what I'm supposed to be doing, and so I try and use all these other little side programs and side projects to vent my creator, trying to prime the pump, On 3 different occasions over the years, I have stopped all but one or 2 of my strips, and I inevitably pick them back up. That's how they're going to find my body, my dead fat body in the middle of a trailer full of filth and surrounded by piles and piles of half-finished fan fictions. That's how it's going to go. That's how I'm going to end up. Sort of trying to dig in my heels, trying to pick up some inside momentum again. Sorry, I drifted off a little bit. Focusing a little bit. Now, every time I've tried to trim back, I've ended up with more projects on my plate. And some of them I can't even shut down because now they're locked obligations. There's so many things I would have liked to have gone back and done differently, knowing what I know now. So many things, and really can't fix any of them. I just have to live with the lumps. Okay, soda lift. Ah, there we go. Yeah. New nip and tuck strap, if you like. Feel free to check that out. And so there's also a new old Victorian comic strip for those who follow that. Aye. Oh my. Let's see here. Let's talk about topics. Let's see. Nice. I'm a little bit worn out. I should have gone. You know, I should have gotten more sleep. I didn't. They're making a live-action version of Shazam now, too. This should be marvelous. Ha-ha. Ha-ha, pun. R-har. R-r-r-r. R-r. Let's see. So you got a thing here. Have you ever been blackberry picking? I remember blackberry picking. Oh my. Remember that. Man, I don't know what it is. Hurting a little bit. Knees hurting. Of course, these days everything hurts. Just a matter of cataloging it. I'm sorry, I'm drifting off here. Just not staying too focused. Really nothing worth talking about on Facebook these days. Well, that's nothing new, actually. My... I think my fuel tank's just about empty. That's all that can be said for it. Raining cats and dogs lately. I'm supposed to have, there's a company supposed to come by and mow my lawn next couple of days. They're gonna charge me about $50 for it. I'm just waiting for it. I really just want to have a nice lawn again. I'm not even on, I can't even go out and enjoy my lawn, but I want it, at least flat. Now, I wish I could rivet you with exciting tales, but right now it's just one day after another right now, trying to paste stuff together, Played a little online game here, played a little World of Warcraft today, just trying to, for a couple hours, and middle of a big PvP battle, player versus player, and man, the Alliance, we could, you got two sides in World of Warcraft, the Alliance and the Horde, and I swear, sometimes it's like the Alliance, couldn't pour pee out of a boot with instructions on the heel. And I was playing one of my wizard characters, and he got into a throw down, haul out, spell slinging fight with this one character. I mean, just wham, 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 wham. And for the life of me, I could not knock this guy down for nothing. I must have done thousands and thousands and thousands of points in damage, but I don't know how. But he was just, healing up too fast. Couldn't beat him. And I was talking about somebody else later. And that wasn't much fun. It's disappointing. I'm supposed to be this. Here's my character. Is supposed to be this, incredibly powerful wizard with, awesome spells and stuff. Can't even make this one guy flinch. Come on. And he says, and the guy was like, oh well, you just didn't have, you deserved to lose because you had bad equipment and he had better equipment. You're a noob, I'm like, wait a minute. Since when is this sportsmanship? Since when is this sportsmanship? What I mean by that is that basically, guys, I should have asked him, so basically you're admitting that the guy didn't beat me because he was a better player. He wasn't a better player. He didn't have any better skills. He didn't have any better strategy or tactics or anything like that. But it's just a matter of him being lucky to open the right number of treasure chests and get a bunch of junk out of the in-game store to stack his character up with. And that's supposed to make me the loser, because I can't compete with that, because he's either got money to waste by the pound on the online in-game store, or he's got hundreds of hours a week, where he can just sit idly by and grind like a monkey. To get all the best gear, and both our characters are supposed to be like level 50, and he's mopping the floor with everybody around. I'm like, and so how does this qualify as him being a better game player? Mm. Sorry, I drifted off there a minute again. Most what I'm getting at is that these online games, they openly admitted, Blizzard, the people that run World of Warcraft, they openly admitted 2-player characters, same rank. Once you strip away all the armor and crafts and all the special equipment that they have to run around all over the world to collect and buy and construct, once you strip all the stuff that gets dumped on them, there's no skill involved. It's a total random chance as to which of the 2 players slinging spells back and forth is going to kick it first. We've gotten it backwards. It used to be that playing a game meant you had skill. Being good at a game meant you had skill. Having a high score meant you had, that you had good hand-eye coordination, or that you had learned strategies for playing the game, or that you had, in the case of combat games, that you had skills and strategy and tactics and planning out your resources and everything. In these Morpgers, every player might as well be the same, and the only difference would be whatever handful of shoddy weapons that they'll hand you. And and you're lording, your character curb stomps mine, and you're sitting there, Lord, you go, get good, noob. Good has nothing to do with it. There's no skill involved. You don't even have to aim. As long as you are facing in the general direction of your target, your spells or your arrows or your thrown weapons will fly true and unerring to the target. No. And don't get me wrong, World of Warcraft is a lot of fun, but I sort of get a little tired of these kids who, I kicked your ass, and I'm like, yeah, you've got weapons and gear that are several hundred levels higher than me, which you got because you're able to sit in front of your computer 8 hours a day grinding like a monkey. Just so that just killing the same orcs over and over until they drop it. All you're doing is you're basically saying the same thing as if you bought all that stuff in the online store. You're saying you're rich and you can waste waste money and time rather than actually getting good yourself. Oh yes, I know that the new expansion is coming through and all that, and everything's currently the balance on everything is screwy. But I'm talking in general. It's there is very little, if any, actual skill involved in these games. I mean, you look at the older games like the Nintendo games, or games like pinball, for crying out loud. I'm talking, playing those involved timing and skill. Not much skill, or very complex skills, but it involves skills. The design, the Blizzard came out, the programmers came out and admitted, you take any two characters of the same class, strip them down, take all their point enhancing equipment, and it is a matter of, it's a coin toss as to which one will win, regardless of how much the players jump around and all the other nonsense they do. It's random. It's not skill based. Now this is one of the things about WildStar that made it more innovative, is that among other things, in WildStar, combat required, among other things, that you aim. It also required, when you used a certain skill or power, it would show, it would have a reticule, an outline in front of your character showing, where your bullets would fly and what they would hit. And you use that, and you could tell, this was how you could tell that fire was incoming, and you could also tell whether or not you're going to hit this character or the one next to him. And it added a certain dimension of actual skill. And I'll say this much, man. Even the player versus player battlefields, you can tell that the people that designed them tried to make these things strategy. They tried to add some battlefield strategy to the game through these, but you see, does the word Zerg Rush just give you a picture of what kind of typical strategy the players use? They don't stop. They don't pick out somebody to be the leader. They don't pick out. They don't discuss strategy or doing anything innovative, to try and capture the flag or capture the base or anything like that. It's basically a mob run with everybody running in a deranged stampeding herd from one side of the map to the other. And it's really embarrassing for anybody that has any desire or pretensions of doing anything mentally complicated. No, I've played other role-playing games. I've played Champions Online, I've played City of Heroes, I've played RuneScape, I've played World of Warcraft, I've played WildStar, and you get to, and let's be honest, World of Warcraft is the one that sets all the tropes and that everybody tries to imitate. It's to some level in how they set up and play the game. These oh yeah, that's another thing. I've never figured out how to keybind certain, supposedly you can set it up so a single keystroke will have your character do this, and this, all in sequence, and I've never learned how to do that. But again, I don't see any There's one capture the flag. There's one capture the flag. There's a fort at one end of the map. They're all basically, most of them are like this. There's a enemy fort at one end of the map and an enemy fort at the other end of the map, and your team is supposed to capture their flag, and you got to capture it 3 times in order to win the match. There's a timer too, so whoever has captured the flag the most times in that time period, in something like 10 minutes, wins the match. And dozens of times, I'll point out, they do this exactly the same every single time. The Alliance players, they'll run down the right-hand side of the screen. The Horde players will be coming running up the other way, up the left side of the screen. And they pass each other. 2 rampaging hordes of, racing for all they're worth towards the other one, trying to capture the. And so many times I've stopped and I said, while we're waiting for the clock to tick down to start the match, I'll say, we'd really blow their little minds if we just, this is a fortress. It's got all sorts of little cubby holes and overhangs and places where we could hide and have lookouts. And how many of us have stealth or invisibility and all? It would utterly wreck their world if, instead of rushing off like a bunch of demented lemmings, we just sat here and waited for them. And they come running in here to capture our flag, and all of a sudden our entire team falls out of the ceiling on them. And I am yet to see anybody, not once in all the years I've been playing, has anybody taken that suggestion. Nobody's even tried it. Tank and spank. I like that. All Memorpagers have broken down to tank and spank. It's, yeah. The tank to stand there and supposedly, take all the punishment and the glass cannons to deal the damage over time, and the healers to stand behind everybody and keep zapping them with magic band-aids over and over again. And it all comes down to whoever has the fastest fingers for pressing the heal or fire button. And I've never seen them discuss strategy or anything. No matter what the setup of the game is, even capture the flag or capture the base or there's even one where you're supposed to. It's sort of a semi-escort mission where you have to capture various wagons of ore as they roll through a mine, and and you have to escort it to the dumping bin. You get so many points for every cart full of ore that dumps in under your flag and stuff like that. But they don't talk, they don't discuss, they don't think things through, they don't try and come up with anything original. They just boom, scatter to the winds. If this were a tabletop game, you'd kill them all. You'd be sick of them within 5 minutes. Everybody literally runs off doing their own thing. Never you mind that the wizards aren't supposed to be able to stand on their own, and the tanks. The only ones who have any real fun, I think, are the tanks, because they can just walk through anything everybody else does. I've never seen anybody do turtling on Alterac Valley. Never seen it. Now, this new expansion, I'll give them a chance. Maybe they'll come up with some new ideas. I'll say this much: World of Warcraft is fun. It's fun. Unlike a lot of people, I enjoyed, the Mists of Pandaria expansion, is where they discovered a hidden continent full of panda people. Oh man, the Take Us Serious crowd just about lost their minds. They're dumbing down our game. You're making it stupid and cute. And I'm like, you play an elf with ears like a sailplane. Shut up. Take my magical half-naked elf huntress seriously, darn you. Anyway, but the Pandaria is just a load of fun. It's just a big old load of fun. The lore is interesting. The missions, some of them are just plain fun. And some are hysterically funny. There's one dungeon, quote unquote, one mission that you run where you and your pickup group you try and save you basically go in and save a Pandaren brewery which has been overrun with ghosts, Hosen, which are basically intelligent baboons, vermin, which are basically a cross between Bugs Bunny and the Tasmanian Devil, and ale elementals, floating beer monsters. It's hysterical because your team is running through this brewery, putting out fires and and stopping Hosen from destroying things, and the Pandaren ghosts that are all over the place. They're all the ghosts are drunk too, and they're talking smack about about your team as they're running through the thing. Who are these guys? Alliance or Horde? What do you want to know? So I know who to cheer against. That kind of crap. It was fun, it was funny. It was amusing. And a lot of the missions are more about helping people than about just smack 3 orcs in the face and steal their pie. Some of the lore is irritating. You got that Eastern mystic nonsense, and there's one point where you're basically no matter whether you're Alliance or Horde, you're railroaded into being the villain. But overall, it's a load of fun, but all the take me serious crowd were just, oh, they're destroying the lore. This wasn't part of the lore. They entirely spit their binky over it. And they had a new race that was supposed to be coming out. In this new expansion. It's a new race. It's called the Volperans. They're basically little desert fox people. And, the same Take Us Serious crowd is, spitting their binky again. Oh, all you're doing is playing to the furries, and you're just, oh, shut up. Yeah, the Worgen models, I gotta say this, the Worgen models really need an update. Now, the Pandaren models are very well made. They're very articulated, they have flexible face expressions, so on and so forth. The Worgens are kind of poorly made. they have only one facial expression, which is snarling. Much less articulation, much less realism. They just need to go back in and spruce them up a little. These new Volparons are made much better, but unfortunately they're not a playable race yet. Not for this expansion, and they're saying they're not meant to be in a playable race. But of course, there's just way too much detail that's been put into them. Way too much detail and that's been put into them. Too many costume variations. Too much, just too much effort put into them to think that they're going to remain a non-playable. They're not going to waste that much effort on an NPC race. At least that's the hope. Because if they're going to do that, they could take some of that effort and go back and spruce up some of the older characters. Man, you ought to see some of the really old. You go back and look at some of the really old character designs. Oh man, they were awful. Just badly done. Just badly done. Of course, the technology hadn't. This game has been online for about 15 years now, so it's seen a lot of technological advances in the time that it's been running, and it's changed accordingly. Yeah, that cheeses me off. I can't think of anything stupider. They have the Tauren. Okay, the Tauren are in the Horde. The Tauren are in the Horde. The Tauren, the nature-loving, Earth Mother worshipping, back to nature, granola crunchy Tauren are in the Horde. The same Horde that turns every land they invade into a barren, polluted wasteland. You want to grab them by their horns and go, "What is wrong with you?" Really, I've said this before. That really, there shouldn't be just two factions. There really shouldn't. It shouldn't be just Alliance and Horde. I think there should be at least 4 factions. There should be the granola crunchies, like the Night Elves and the Tauren, as one faction, the back to nature types. And possibly the Pandaren. The Tauren, there should be the civilization builders, like the dwarves, the gnomes, the humans, and the blood elves. Of course, they got so many variation of elves that you could take, the blood elves, the night elves, and you could take the blood elves and the void elves and all those, and just put them all in their own group. I think that the Horde should be the Conqueror races, like the trolls, the orcs, and the goblins should all be one group, and then you have the Forsaken, the evil is cool crowd, such as the demon hunters, the warlocks, the Forsaken, and the Death Knights. People that I'm sorry, I can't think of anything more. It's like Darwin Award time. It's Darwin Award time when you have the Alliance saying, "Oh, we should ally ourselves with this group that are turning themselves into half-demon monsters by consuming demon blood. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. You know, in the middle of a war with a demonic enemy, you know, army coming in. Oh, really? Yeah, we should have some warlocks on our side too. You know, we're fighting this demon army. Let's have some people who summon demons. You know, working with our army. That sounds like a great idea to me. Doesn't it sound like a great idea to you? Oh, and and even the horde, you know, even the horde's packing a Darwin Award now. Is, oh yeah, let's ally ourselves with the Forsaken. It's not like they've stabbed us in the back more than 5 times. Or you could have all the groups, you know, you could have the Worgen, the Tauren, the Pandarans, the Volperans, you know, all the talking animal people in one group over here, you know. The furry crowd, you know, that'll work. You know, all the elves over here, all the furries over there, all the humans and human variants, you know, the dwarves and gnomes and humans over here, and the orcs and goblins and trolls over here, and then you have the Forsaken over here. Just basically, they should, you know, there should be more than 2 factions. Let's leave it at that. You know, and the various factions, you know, from expansion to expansion, they could probably, you know, they could have different alliances depending upon the circumstances. Stay away from mimosas. They're sneaky. I've never had a mimosa. Isn't a mimosa the orange juice and champagne? Well, the problem is that you play the story, you know, you play the game. If you have one character, you level the character up, and there's all sorts of story in the game. But once you've leveled a character up, you don't want to read the same story over again. But you have to, you know, you've got another character, you know, you've played, you know, a wizard all the way up to level 110, and now you want to play a fighter or a paladin. But you have to go through the same thing over again. Really, you know, just, I don't know. That's how I would do it. That's how I would run World of Warcraft if I was in charge of the world, you know. Simple. I've never drunk an alcoholic beverage. That's how I've never had a mimosa. Okay, I've tasted a beer, a single beer, and I've tasted wine. But that was it. You know, I've never had any, you know, any other, you know, never. I come to the basic conclusion that you know, it does not taste good, and too many things that, you know, okay, let me put it this way. All these people are, let's go out and get wasted, yeah, let's go out to the bar and get wasted, Jigger bombs, you know. And I'm like, okay, let's consider what wasted involves. You get, you know, you get drunk, you get dizzy, you get nauseous, you throw up, and you fall down. Okay. You know, and you wake up with a hangover. Splitting headaches, nausea, vomiting, I mean, this is like a catalog of all the horrible feelings I never wanted to feel ever again in my entire life. And I don't like being disoriented. That's not fun to me. This just does not seem fun. And I'm like, no. And the consequences are just too steep. If you can drink, if you can drink with temperance, no problem. I've got no problem with that. They weren't drinking Kool-Aid around the table at Christ when Christ was in town. No. But I think drinking to excess is incredibly stupid. And I also think that really that there are better tasting things to drink. I tasted wine. I'm like, tastes like spoiled grape juice, and I'm like, I could have bought some regular grape juice and been much happier. I looked at the bottle, and it was one of these. It was called Barefoot Wine. It was just a red wine. And I'm like, yeah, it tastes like a foot. I poured myself a glass, took a sip of it, and went, eh. It was like drinking something that had gone bad, and I'm like, and I threw it away. The beer I sampled. Okay, everybody's making fun of me for this. But I was in my 20s, finally out on my own. Like, I was a grown man, and I was like, I have never tasted beer. I've never tasted a Budweiser or a Pabst or any of the, I've never been near a beer. My grandfather was an alcoholic, first of all. And that was a terrible tragedy. And made my father's life miserable when he was a boy. So, and my father, told, he's a Baptist pastor. He just total abstinence. And I felt that way myself a long time. And well, anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm living on my own. I'm going to try a beer just to see what it's like. And I go to the store and I buy one tall boy. One can. I'm not going to buy a 6-pack. I'm not out to get blitzed. I just want to taste, when beer tastes. I run through the register and I go home. It's a can of Foster's. A can of Foster's. It's Australian for beer. And I sit down and I open it up and I take a sip. Look, I have tasted some horrible things in my life. I have tasted some absolutely awful things, awful tasting medicines. I've tasted earwax. I've barfed into my own mouth. I know, I've just some absolutely awful, horrible tastes. I am not lying to you. I am not exaggerating to you when I tell you that mouthful, just not even a full mouthful, just a sip of Foster's beer was so awful. It was the worst tasting thing I have ever had and ever had since. It was so horrible. It was so horrible. I literally couldn't bring myself to spit it back out, because it would mean passing it back over my tongue and lips again. I ran to the bathroom and I started over the bathroom saying bleh, and let it just bleh out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh my word. Foster's, it's Australian for kangaroo piss. And after a lifetime of being raised as a Christian, and talk about the demon rum and devil beer and and all that, and morally and ethical conscience, I won't touch anybody else. You drink it as long as you're temperate. That's between you and the good Lord Almighty. But me, I can't drink it with a clear conscience, and I won't drink it because even if I could, I wouldn't drink it because it tastes like horrible. It just tastes bad. And I'm like, and I got to question anybody whose philosophy is, let's find the one that tastes the least horrible. No, that's not it's not brains. It's just what happened to your mind. Yeah, the Bible does say be sober. The lesson is that the Bible doesn't talk. The Bible doesn't the Bible doesn't condemn drinking. It condemns drunkenness. It also condemns gluttony. You won't see Baptists giving up the casserole dish anytime soon. Plaflurba. When I was a little boy, I grew up. I was the understanding of a child. I thought it was a choice between beer or Jesus, and I decided that wasn't and I didn't want anything to do with it. Got my dad in all sorts of trouble. He was still going to college at the time, Bible college, when I was a little boy, and I was under the mistaken impression that ginger ale was ale, and and certainly tasted bad enough. I don't like ginger ale. Uh, and apparently somebody somebody at church overheard me saying my daddy drinks that ale stuff, and word got passed along. My dad got called up in front of the dean of the college, and he explained, no, can of Verner's ginger ale. Yeah, that's another reason to avoid it. They've proven family history of alcoholism. My grandfather was an alcoholic, and there is an indication. They've found proof that there's a genetic predilection for addiction and alcoholism. But and I can, look, you're spending all this time trying to hunt for an alcoholic drink that doesn't taste terrible. I could just go get a bottle of pop and just be done with it. Go get a bottle of chocolate milk, some lemonade, glass of water, anything. I've seen some of these drinks people mix up, I'm like, if you left the alcohol out, you'd have a dessert. Yeah, it's kind of sad. Most soft drinks are, there are all artificial flavor. It used to be it's almost impossible to find a ginger ale that's made with actual ginger. I was saying, my father, he used to drink ginger ale for his stomach. Always had these stomach troubles. And it was years before he realized, that the ginger ale he was drinking didn't have any ginger in it anymore. It wasn't doing him any good. Yeah, well, soy milk, actually, here's another thing for you about soy milk. They found out it's actually got anti-nutrients in it. Soy milk, it will literally leach other nutrients, certain nutrients out of your body. It's not a substitute for milk. It's not really that great an idea. Soybeans are not really meant, human beings are not meant to live on soybeans. Soy milk, almond milk, all that other, just get a cow. You do realize if everybody stopped drinking milk, all those cows, they go extinct. See, people don't understand that the Guernsey dairy cattle, they have been bred for thousands of years to produce lots of milk. It's a species trait now, and if they are not milked regularly, it can make them sick and kill them. Cows, you can't just let you couldn't just let a bunch of cows out into the wild, born free. No, they die. It wouldn't even need predators. They simply would not be able to survive. And neither could most of the domestic livestock or animals. They gave up. They basically gave up their ability to survive in the wilderness for the security and safety of being domesticated animals. I like to point out, if meat is murder, then vegetarianism is genocide. Soybeans are a substitute when you can't get real food. Stupidest thing I ever saw is that, on Teen Titans, Garfield, Beast Boy, he's a vegetarian. And they make a big deal about it constantly. And he's like, and his rationalization is, I've been half, they bring in a meat pizza, and he's like, I've been half the animals on that pizza. Yeah, I just want to reach in the screen, smack it upside the head. Yeah, you dumbass, and you've been the other half of the species that eat the first half. You imitate every species. You think a Tyrannosaurus lives on vegetables? It's no wonder you're small and puny and scrawny. You need meat. You probably need meat more and more. Somebody who could turn into all those different species of animals, carnivores, herbivores, omnivores, would probably need meat more than an ordinary person would. Yeah, the voice actor, Casey Kasem, get this. I didn't know this for the longest time. Casey Kasem, the guy that did American Top 40, he also did the voice of Shaggy on Scooby-Doo. And he insisted that Shaggy had to be a vegetarian. him and his dog. And I'm like, Casey Kasem, you're a moron. Oh, it took me the longest time. It was the longest time before I found out that he was, it was stupid. It was stupid, is stupid, and will forever be stupid. People who try and make their animals vegetarian should not be allowed to keep animals. They shouldn't. A dog forced onto a vegetarian diet, no matter how carefully balanced the soy dog food they give them is generally sickly. And a cat, it's a death sentence. And every year they have case after case after case these bobblehead doll people getting a cat, a kitten, forcing it to drink soy milk and to live on vegetarian food, and the poor thing dies of malnutrition. Yes, it is animal abuse. It's human abuse too. You make your children eat a vegetarian diet, you ought to be smacked upside the head. All these cultures where the people are vegetarian, the real reason that they're vegetarians is because they can't afford much meat. You also notice that they're smaller, scrawnier, and give me a break. It's rubbish. Our role in the food chain was established at the fall of Eden, when God took a couple of animals, killed them, and made clothing out of their skins for Adam and Eve. I'll make a hat out of you. Get out of there. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. If you ever watch it, it's available on YouTube. It's a documentary called Fathead. Watch it. It's in support of the paleo diet, but it's also a documentary. The guy was investigating. It began as an investigation of the Super Size Me guy. You remember there was this guy that he went on a fast food diet. He claimed to go on a fast food diet and and claimed it nearly killed him. And this other guy started investigating. He said, this is kind of wonky here. And to prove the guy was lying, he went on a fast food diet himself. Now notice he changed it up a little bit. He counted carbs, but he ate he ate fried chicken, he ate burgers, he ate all that other stuff, and he actually got healthier. His cholesterol got better. He lost weight. And he basically, but as part of his documentary, the documentary is called Fathead, and he looked into the history of the high carb, low protein, low meat diet that was pushed in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that's been and that's still being pushed in many corners of the world. And he pointed out a lot of it was just flat out medical fraud. Oh, wild, wild weezer. I am sorry. I haven't. That last drawing is the tiger cow, the tiger bull. Was it? I will get right on that. I'll try and have that to you by tomorrow night. Bit of a jackass about that. I should have had that done. Anyway, I lost track of it. I'm serious. The reason that the FDA and the government has been pushing, they're pushing. Look at a school lunch. What are they putting? 2% milk. Low fat this, low fat that, low fat this, low fat that. More grains, less veggies, more grains and veggies, less meat and less fat, less milk, less protein, less dairy. And he points out it's very interesting. He made a very interesting point. Near the end of the documentary, he pointed out, isn't it interesting how since the 70s, they took whole milk off the menu of every school, every public school, and suddenly, in that same time, we suddenly have this sudden upsurge of kids with attention deficit disorder and other hyperactive disorders. And he pointed out they took whole fat milk off, the whole milk off the menu at just about the age when kids' brains are developing the most, and human brains are largely lipids. We need, everybody talks about, everybody demonizes cholesterol, but we need it. It composes the tissues of our brains. Oh, no, he didn't go into any further depth there, but he still does make an interesting point. And I seriously doubt there's just one cause for all those things. You got a big, the big old tangled ball of social and political and health issues all in one with ADHD and ADD and all that. But the fact that we put all our kids in our countries, all our kids in Western civilization on low-fat diets at just about the point where they're just starting, where their brains are seriously starting to develop. And what a surprise, they start having neurological problems. Gee, I wonder if there's a connection. Yeah. What can you say? But still, the documentary Fathead. It's available here on YouTube. You can look it up. There are clips of it, short excerpts of it, and the whole video, the whole movie is available here on YouTube. Just look it up, watch it, and draw your own conclusions. We got all these people who are conducting social experiments on our children, and we're aiding and abetting them. I like this one saying is, one guy said, this one guy made a quote. He said, You got these people who claim they have a transsexual child. I rate them as the same as the people who claim to have a vegan cat. We all know who's really making the life choice decision, the lifestyle decisions right there. Yeah, they're going after the kids now. The pedophiles are after the kids. The sexual licentiousness, the sexual revolution is still being fought, and we're all the casualties. The first goal, they broke up marriage. Then once heterosexual marriage was on the rocks, they came in and started attacking. They started pushing homosexuality in, and now that they've not only gotten it accepted, but God help you if you don't burn a pinch of incense to the glories of Princess Lesbia, the goddess Lesbia. Now they're starting to push. They're starting to push for an acceptance of sexualizing children, making them question their gender and their sexuality at a younger and younger age. 8-year-old drag queens. There's a couple of parents that need to be shot. And their children put in a safe home somewhere 1,000 miles away or so. The goal, it's not madness. It's a very sane, very cold-blooded, very ruthless, and very evil campaign with a goal of making pedophilia perfectly acceptable. They're sexualizing children and trying to make it acceptable to make them into sex objects. You remember hearing a few months back where there's a scandal popped up. They found out that there were claims that there was a particular quote-unquote pizza parlor where high-ranking political individuals were showing up for rendezvous with children. And there was other evidence that people like Bill Clinton had been going on sex tours, cruises to little private islands. Those stories suddenly vanished into thin air, didn't they? There are people, profoundly evil people, walking the streets right now. And walking the halls of power right now, who are conspiring to prey upon our children. You hardly need a secret passage when all you have to do is meet in the back room. It could have been as simple a thing as the place being a letter drop for people swapping, whatever. But no, it's this sort of thing is going on. It's going on right now, and you don't think it's happening. Look out in the streets, my God! There are people out there dressing their sons up as little drag queens and strutting them down Main Street. You think that wasn't their design all along? You think that there wasn't a movement to make that happen? I'll admit to this. I'll admit to being surprised. I expected the bestialists to be the next ones up on the block. I expected the bestialists to be the next ones to start shaking the tree, trying to get social acceptance. Because, and all I can say is, why did I think that? Maybe it was, perspective being blinded. But I really thought, for whatever reason, I thought that people would at least be too revolted at the idea of actually, at the idea of touching children. That for some reason I believe that these depraved, even these depraved people would shy away from going after children at least at this early juncture. Using live animals as sex toys, people, I can perfectly imagine people doing that before they, I could imagine people using live animals as sex toys before I could imagine them, trying to normalize pedophilia. And it caught me flat-footed to discover that this was not the case. Oh my word! Corey Feldman, that kid who was on in the movie Gremlins. You remember him? He came out ages ago saying, that people came after him when he was a little boy in Hollywood. Oh yeah, it's worse. I'm sure it's worse in Canada and Europe, and in Mexico. I've repeated this fact over and over and over again. The age of consent has been lowered to 12. You think that you hear about sex tourism all the way out in like Cambodia or in these Asian countries on the opposite side of the planet. Then you find out that, surprise, Tijuana's got a new line in 12-year-old prostitutes. Just south of the border. It's a terrible state for the world. And this is the terrifying. This is why I am so deeply concerned for the future. Because I know enough about the social situation. I know something about the political and economic situation. And when a society has reached the level of moral decadence, suddenly undergoes an economic collapse. The collapse is 1,000 times worse because they have nothing to support them. When the money that makes everything, that greases everything, is gone. It's going to be God's own divine mercy and providence that sustains America over the next decade or so. it would take radical transformations to turn this country around politically, morally, spiritually, religiously, and economically. And people act as if the economic decline of America and the decline in Christianity in our society are somehow separate. The moral decline and the economic decline. Tell me how it isn't immoral to spend money you don't have. Fractional reserve banking, fiat currency, all the shenanigans that the government has pulled over the past 100 years to rationalize, excuse, justify, and legalize spending money they do not have. All of it is a definition of moral turpitude. It's you know they it comes down to the simple fact that God-fearing people tend to be reluctant to disobey the commandment, "Thou shalt not steal." And the fiat currency is basically nothing more than a heist on an international scale. Yeah, well, yes, fiat currency is immoral because it's always a promise you can't keep. There's never a situation where you can make a fiat currency because it always starts out like this. Economies always start out like this. All economy is basically barter. People talk about barter and trade as if they were passé, as if they were. All economy is barter. You start out with a civilization. You've got all these people trading goods and services. Eventually, everybody trading back and forth, something rises to the top. A particular commodity rises to the top that nearly everybody wants, that pretty much everybody wants, and that you can trade for just about anything, consequently. That commodity becomes the currency. In many civilizations, it's been all sorts of things. It's been everything from stone wheels to pressed tea leaves. But the most common has always been precious metals, particularly gold. Because gold is a very stable commodity by its nature. It doesn't corrode, it doesn't get consumed. It doesn't, and you don't have sudden surges in the amount that's available in the economy. So it becomes a stable commodity of trade. And along comes somebody and invents the idea of a bank. Here, I'll store your gold. I'll store your gold coins for a small fee. Then they come up with the idea, and you give them your gold, and they give you a receipt that says, Joe Blow has deposited 100 ingots, 100 coins of gold in this bank. And subsequently, it becomes simpler and easier to trade the receipts than it is to go to the bank, pull the coins out, swap the coins in, and then put them back in their respective vaults. And that's where things like paper money come from. Paper starts out as a receipt for an actual commodity, namely gold in this case. The problem is that inevitably inevitably somebody comes along, works in the bank, and suddenly gets a clever idea. As long as they realize that, as long as nobody's coming along and looking into the vault and counting all the coins, they don't know. No one person knows how much coin is in the vault, as long as they print out a receipt for it. And so the bankers start printing out more receipts than they actually have in gold. And they start investing those receipts in businesses, and they start giving those receipts out as paychecks, and they start printing more and more receipts, and then one day, boom, there's a run on the bank. Suddenly, somebody starts worrying, all I've got is these paper receipts, where's my gold? And they go to the bank, and surprise, surprise, the bankers have spent all the money. They've spent all the gold, and they've been handing out nothing but receipts for an almost empty vault. And people get lynched. Unfortunately, we've reached a point where the bankers have managed to convince the politicians that they can keep on, even after they've shown that the vaults, all the gold's gone, that they can keep printing receipts and using them the same as if they were real money. And they print more and more and more and more and more and more and more until finally, kerpop, up goes the system. Because eventually it reaches a point where nobody will accept those fiat receipts. Not as a promissory note, not as anything. And what you get is what happened in Germany. A massive economic collapse that triggered the rise of a little toothbrush mustached psychopath, who promised them the moon and stars if they gave him all the power. And they did, and away we went with World War II. And we are in a situation that is, several orders of magnitude worse than the Weimar Republic was when the German mark collapsed. The only reason that we haven't collapsed already, the only reason we haven't gone through hyperinflation, is because we've been selling our debt abroad. Basically, we stopped writing rubber checks at home, started traveling, 100 miles down the road to the next town, and started writing rubber checks there. Because you got these third world countries who still believe that the American dollar is worth something. And we've been giving, in fact, China, the other nations are figuring out what's going on, and they're trying to take measures. China is trying to dump all the American dollars in its system as fast as it can. Hot potato, keep away. Got to get rid of it before the timer runs out. And everything turns back into a pumpkin. And it is as inevitable as that carriage turning back into a pumpkin. It's just that inevitable. Sure as midnight is always coming. Someday all the magic will end, and kerpoof. And with as much as others have invested in America, and America has invested in others, the repercussions of a bank collapse, a collapse of the American dollar, would just it's just going to literally shake the earth. It's going to shake the foundations of the earth. And the people that have been exploiting us all this time, they're going to disappear. They're going to hop aboard their jets and take off for parts unknown, because they'll have taken everything of value out of our economy through the through the taxing system and fiat currency. This is where we are. And when our society, when our economy goes, an entire 2 or 3 generations of people who are used to having everything, coddled and padded and softened and made easy for them, are going to be left, swinging in the breeze. You talk to these people, and you talk to a lot of people who laugh at people who laugh at the idea of the gold standard coming back, and the idea of the. I'll point out 2 things to them. Countries like India and China are buying up every ounce of gold they can get. China alone is buying up literally all the gold, in volume, the same amount of gold that all the gold mines on Earth are producing. It's literally buying it up as fast as it's being dug up out of the ground. India is doing the same thing, buying up as much gold as it can, getting rid of as many American dollars as it can. And you got to be dumber than a canned ham not to think they don't see which way the wind is blowing. This is why I tell people, don't save money in a bank. Don't save up money. Pay your bills quickly. And what money you have left over, spend on resources that you can use. Equipment, food, clothing, medicine, tools, and anything that has some solid intrinsic value. Shoot, this is real. I've got, one of the things I do is, part of my grocery, but I need to do more of this. I've stocked up. I've got a couple of I've got a couple of huge cans of coffee and several smaller cans of baking cocoa. Why? Because when the economy collapses, coffee and chocolate, they're going to be almost impossible to come by. The price is going to go right through the skylight. And I want you to think all those people out there jonesing for a Starbucks, and there's not going to be any coffee around. Even if you don't drink coffee yourself, you can trade it for something else. I say stock up on herbs, spices, as much as you can get, as many as you can get. Stock up on basics too, staples like things like salt. Oh no, they haven't made. It's legal to own gold. They've made it illegal to hoard certain above a certain amount of gold. But okay, let's put it this way: they can make it illegal all they want. Good luck enforcing it. You think they're going to let people keep cryptocurrency if they're not going to let them stash a few gold coins? Come on. They're not even going to have to try too hard to get rid of cryptocurrency. I like to see you trade some cryptocurrency for a can of beans. When the collapse really happens. No. It's legal to. It's perfect. I don't know where you're getting the idea that it's illegal to own gold in the United States. They're buying and selling it, investing in it, purchasing it, collecting it. No. You know. So. And this is why I say, don't, you know, when the dollar collapses, people will do what they've always done. They will go back to a more solid economic standard. For tens of thousands of years, economies have come and gone. Fiat currencies have come and gone. Thousands, literally thousands of different vaporware currencies have come and gone. But a gold coin, an ounce of gold, is still valuable. A gold coin stamped 500 or 1,000 or 6,000 years ago is still valuable today, and not just because it's an ancient artifact either. Yeah, well, that's the thing of it. The government can call it whatever it wants. It comes a point where you decide whether you're going to, play Mother May I with the government, or whether you're going to ignore their folly and do what you need to survive. You are under no obligation to obey a law that demands you forfeit your well-being or your life. Diversifying your investments doesn't do any good if all your investments are in, monopoly money. You want to really diversify your investments. I repeat myself. Buy yourself supplies, tools, books, how-to manuals. Learn to repair things yourself. Food, basic staples, medicine. If you want something that you can barter, you buy things like I said, like coffee, herbs, spices. If with an economic collapse, internet, commerce is just going to go straight down the toilet. And things like coffee are already, things like coffee, tea, and basic is something as simple as pepper. Ordinary black pepper is going to become wildly expensive and very difficult to get. Yes, God, God will provide, and God's, God's plan will unfold as He sees fit. But He also expected, He expected the people of Israel to have faith in Him, but He also expected them to prepare for hard times and be ready. One thing I'd invest in too is bullets. That's horrible, that's violent. You think it's going to be a Wild West shootout? No, I think it's going to be very difficult to get. I think that defending your home and your property is going to become very important, and that among the things that are going to be valuable in and of themselves are going to be things like ammunition. This is one of the things. Isn't it interesting? Those games. What are they called? The post-apocalyptic games. That franchise of games. What is it? Where they use bottle caps for money. Where they use bottle caps for money. What is it? I can't believe I've forgotten the name of the game. But Fallout, right. But that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. There is no reason on the face of God's green earth that a post-apocalyptic society would use bottle caps, of all things, for money. Ridiculously plentiful and absolutely useless. Even gold, people would still use gold if they could get their hands on it, because 10,000 years of human habit is a little hard to shake. But a more realistic. Here's something that one writer suggested. Here's an idea for you. In all these zombie apocalypses and post-nuclear war Mad Max scenarios, why do you never see anybody trading bullets? something as simple as a bullet for a 45 bullet or a 22 or a shotgun shell. Those would be good as money, especially in a dangerous world like is described in Fallout or in Mad Max or in any of these other examples you care to name. And somebody with the skill to make bullets, with a bullet press, somebody who can repack shotgun shells and use reuse the brass, and make new bullets. They'd be rich beyond. They'd be the richest guy around. Oh yeah, I'm sure that bottle yeah yeah, you can't press more bottle caps. They'd have a fixed value of nothing because they're garbage. They're not made of a precious metal. They're not made of a useful metal even. They can't be used for anything except just taking up space. You could say the same thing for gold coins, but again, gold and silver and precious metals, humanity has always returned to those as a commodity currency. And even in dire straits, people will see gold and silver as valuable. It may not be rational, but it's human nature. And it is somewhat rational because humanity has gone through thousands of thousands of civilizations over the past 10,000 years have folded in their cards and collapsed, and the people have gone through the rubble picking out all the gold pieces so they could go down the road to the next empire and buy themselves some goods. Egypt is, the empire of Egypt has been dust and ash for thousands of years, but gold coin from that time is would still be in circulation thousands of years later. Meanwhile, all the other substitutions they use for currency are just nothing but novelties. Well, the point is that in a post-apocalyptic society, especially early on, bullets would probably be the go-to currency. And anybody who owned a bullet press, is that the proper word? They would not only be ridiculously wealthy, they would also be, they'd also be valued in and of themselves as somebody skilled enough to make ammunition. You remember me telling you about those books printed by that British guy, written by that British guy? He showed how to make bullets using ordinary, the ordinary tools that you'd find in a typical workshop, and copper piping. He showed how to make shotgun shells out of old film canisters and things like that. And well, there you have it. A guy like that in a post, he could write his own check, so to speak. Because not only could he make all the bullets he needed, nobody would be willing to, everybody would be willing to protect him for the sake of what he could do, for the sake of the skills he had. And even though bullets, he could make a ton of bullets. In a dangerous world, they'd get used up pretty quick. It'd be the first example of a valid, perishable economic, commodity currency. Of course, all games are kind of stupid about money. Consider this: in the game, you're a hero who's trying to prevent, some horrible apocalypse from happening, and every store on the planet is like racking up the prices against you. Here, I'm trying to save the world. I need a sword. That'll be $50. I couldn't borrow this and bring it back. Like, no, that'll be $50. That'll be 50 gold pieces. And the closer you get to the danger, the higher the prices go. Oh, you're here to prevent you're here to prevent Armageddon. That'll be 500 gold pieces for a pointy stick. Like, could we possibly work this out? No. Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that bullets are fairly easy to make if you know how to do it right. I mean, how many people do you know of who can go out and go into their garage and make some bullets that can pop into their Colt 45? There'd be a lot of people who'd try it and end up blowing their own fingers off if they were lucky. That's another thing about these movies. It's amazing how many people zombie apocalypse. And you never see some schmuck who thinks he's Johnny Apocalypse going out there and getting himself killed. Yeah, and in a pinch, RH vet, in a pinch, you know how to reload. You would literally be, it'd be like making your own money. And even in a recession or a depression, where things are getting hard, and it would still be a valuable skill to have. Because even if you're not fighting off Mad Max and his road warriors, you still got to have some bullets for shooting vermin, coyotes, or for hunting. So, you'd be able to trade ammo for, animal skins, meat, fish, whatever, you'd be able to trade, you got something there that would be highly useful. Me, I'd be dead meat. I'll draw you a funny animal for some food. That's... I'd be the guy they'd push out the front door to sate the wild dingoes. Now, if you could make bottle caps into bullets, you might have something. Tradable resources, tradable skills. Heck of a life. These points, all we can do is pray for God's grace. Get us through the hard times. Heaven help us when a society that is used to indulging its every whim suddenly finds itself in a place where it can't. Goodness. Okay, it is 12:30, and I've been going on for a long time shooting my mouth off about nothing in particular. I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm really tired. And for those who don't know, I'm doing a GoFundMe because right now I'm in a serious economic pinch. I owe both the IRS. I owe the IRS $5,000, and I owe my landlord $5,000. And I am trying to raise money so I can pay both of them off. Taking commissions, of course, and everything. I've also started a GoFundMe, which is visible at the bottom of the screen there, www.gofundme.com, Save Ralph's Home. If you don't want to donate, that's cool with me. But if you could pass the word on, I'd appreciate it too. But thank you all for watching, and tomorrow night I'll try and have something a little more meaty for a show. Otherwise, we'll just go from there. Let's see. Wild Weasel. Wild Weasel. I got the Wild West. The Wild West. Wild Weasel. I will try and have that final drawing done. I apologize for how long it has taken. And I'll get that cracked out. I'll try and get a few more things drawn up too. Just put my nose to the grindstone and chuck some Monster Energy drink down me and go with it. I'll see you all tomorrow night. Tell more people to watch my show, please. Because I love you, you love me. Let's hang Barney from a tree with a great thick rope and beat him with a stick, and purple dinosaurs make me sick. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you again. Good night.